I am also going to share this on Facebook as well. Please give me 1 second.
Yeah, I'm about to give my 5 minutes of fame. I'm on Facebook now. I'm live.
Okay, so welcome everyone. We are excited that you decided to join us on this Monday. I'm going to be very honest. I'm a little annoyed that my bun is is blending in with this picture, but we're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it work. I am so excited, truly excited that all of you have joined us today. So I am Dr. Joy, and this is Secrets of a Confident Woman for Women's History Month. Welcome to all of the women. First of all, welcome to each of you, but I do want to specifically say welcome to the women. You all are amazing. You are wonderful. You are God's creation, and we are happy to celebrate Women's History Month with each and every one of you. I essentially, just to give you a little bit of information about me if you don't know me, so I am from the Flint area, born in Virginia, raised in Flint, Michigan. Flintstones, where are you? Put some fire or something in the chat. Hey to my Flintstones. And I have since moved to the DMV area. I live in Maryland now. But even then, my heart is still in Flint. So big ups to Flint. And so my background, I have education in public health. I am a department chair at a university, and I also teach public health as well. And I am the creator, the founder of Confidence Academy, which has a mission of cultivating confidence, character, and courage in the lives of women as well as teenagers. Secrets of a Confident Woman, it is one of the books that I actually wrote about a year ago. And with that, hey, boo, hey, Kiara. And so with that, I wanted to have these sessions of what are some secrets of a confident woman. And so one secret that I want to share is making sure our mind is right. Last year, we actually had this session, and one of the things that I would say is from Lauryn Hill. In one of her songs, she would say, how you gonna win when you ain't right within? Right. And so we got to make sure that we are our best selves mentally and emotionally, as well as spiritually and physically. But right now, today, we're going to talk about mental health and the importance of it. We're also going to talk about a topic that I am becoming a lot more well-versed in. I think I'm about to have my PhD in boundaries and setting boundaries, because that is something that I've been working on diligently here recently. So I am so excited to have Aisha and Margaret here with me. Margaret. Now, Margaret and I'm going to start with Margaret. Margaret is a fellow Flintstone, and Margaret and we actually met a while ago. I don't remember how we met, but we met a long time ago. Was it EDS?
Probably. That sounds about right.
Okay, so we met at EDS, and we had no idea that her god sister was one of my really good friends, Nikki Sumter. And Margaret and I had the pleasure of being in Nikki and Lance's wedding together. Something beautiful was the hashtag for the wedding. And so both of us had an opportunity to really get to know each other a lot more during that time frame. Always texting each other on the phone with each other. But Margaret is phenomenal, and I'm so excited that she joined us today. And so Margaret, just if you could just share some information about yourself and your background as it pertains to mental health.
Well, I won't take up the entire time, but I will have to say, well, my name is Margaret, everybody. I've been doing some aspect in the mental health field since about 2006, when I worked in the school system, and I started out working with children, where I did one-on-one with cognitive behavior kids. Then I went on to the state of Michigan and did that for about 10 years. And I did all sorts of things within the state of Michigan, from just helping people with casework stuff, children's services, adult services, fraud, rehabilitation. Then I went on to, at the height of the pandemic, went on to McLaren, working on the behavioral health unit. And boy, oh boy, was that something else. And quick burnout. However, it was well worth it. But I'm actually at Hurley Mental Health Outpatient Clinic, where I love what I do. I do love what I do. Everybody always say, well, why do you do what you do? Because it's so easy to me. It really is very easy to me. So when you love what you do, it doesn't seem like work at the end of the day. I graduated with my master's from Michigan State University. Go green, go white. Sorry if that offends anyone, but it is what it is. Go green, go white. And then I went on to get my license within the state of Michigan. I actually have a couple different licenses in other states as well. But I've started Love Beyond Trauma, and I'm fully paneled to take on individuals as far as counseling go. But I try to just, I have a lot of people that ask me about different aspects of counseling. So I just try to give nuggets along the way, instead of, because some people, we'll get into that later, feel a little pressure with coming in and talking to a therapist. But that's pretty much me in a nutshell as far as my career goes.
Thank you. Well, welcome again. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking your time on a Monday to be with us. And then Aisha and I met, it was it a career fair? Was that the first one? Okay, yeah. So we met at a career fair. I love giving back to the community. Aisha knows this. Whenever if she would call and ask me, hey, we have this career fair, can you come? She in terms of speaking with the kids in Detroit, whatever it was, I was there. And so I loved working with Aisha. I love getting to know her. And I have always thought that you were awesome, and the children loved you at the different schools that you were at. And so I'm excited that you joined us as well today. So Aisha, can you give us some of your background?
Yes, and thank you for that. So hi, everybody. I'm Aisha. I have been a high school counselor and middle school counselor for the past 5 years now. In the city of Detroit. I currently transitioned out, and I am working for an organization called Pretty Brown Girls. And I also have my own therapy practice called The Path to Wholeness. So I've also been a therapist for the past 4 to 5 years, where I primarily see women and adolescents of color here in the Metro Detroit area, specializing in anxiety, grief, life transitions, and just self-esteem and identity issues. That's what I'm really, really passionate about, is making sure that we feel valued, seen, loved, recognized, all of that, and that we know who we are. Because when you know who you are, you operate a little bit differently. What else? I also have a clinicians network. So something that I started a couple of years ago is called the Urban Clinicians Network. And it's really just an internal referral network for clinicians, whether you're a psychologist, psychiatrist, for therapists. And people are able to reach out if they need a referral. We kind of do a search for them and send them a list of referrals if they're in need of a mental health professional. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you again for being with us. So I do just want to start with, and for everyone, this is interactive, so please feel free to type in the chat. I see some of the chats. I see Tanisha saying go green. I see a lot of hey everyone. I see some bedrocks in there and all of that. So again, feel free to please interact as well. If you have questions, go ahead and put it in the chat as well. So what I did want to get started with is, a lot of times, especially in the Black community, therapy is seen more as a taboo. A lot of times people don't want to talk about therapy, or I don't want to tell people my business, or, even from a Christian standpoint, I don't go to therapy, I go to church. I don't go to therapy, I just pray. And so I really believe, I'm a huge advocate of therapy, huge advocate of therapy. I personally believe, just like we're supposed to get annual physicals, Yes, we are, all of us, annual physicals with our doctors. So get blood work, all of that, just like we're supposed to get annual physicals. I personally believe that we should also get annual mental checkups and at least talk to someone at least once a year. That's just my personal thought. And I think sometimes people think that you're crazy, or people are going to think that I'm crazy, or I'm going to seem weak because I'm going to talk with someone. What is your take on that in terms of the importance of going to therapy? And either of you can jump in.
Okay. I'm a therapist with a therapist. So I definitely find value in going to talk to somebody. Just a little bit of self-disclosure. What pushed me was, even though I knew the signs of anxiety and I'm able to, walk myself through like, okay, well, seems like you may have an anxiety attack or a panic attack. And, what were you thinking about? And all of these things, what are some things happening in your life? Just because I am a mental health professional, it doesn't mean that I am exempt or that I'm not human. And so that was my push to actually say, you know what, you're new to this field, you are experiencing a lot of different just growing pains and, things that were happening in my personal life, like go talk to somebody. So it's not necessarily that you have to have something going on, that something traumatic has to happen. You can just use therapy as a place to talk about what's good in your life, talk about changes that may be happening in your career or things that you may want to do just for an outlet. We're constantly talking about, self-care. And sometimes as women, we equate self-care to getting our nails done or getting our hair done. And sometimes it's actually taking care of like our minds. Just like we go to exercise and we go to the gym, it's okay to have a space that's judgment-free, because sometimes we feel judged by friends or family if we're dealing with some things. But it's just a space to use for an outlet so that you can take care of yourself.
Absolutely. I agree. Margaret, do you want to add, to that as in terms of therapy? Anything you want to add?
Therapy is just, I feel like that it's good all the way around. Like she said, it could be just a space for you to vent, but also within therapy, a lot of times when you go into therapy and you're talking to a professional or, whomever the case and cause may be, sometimes you're dealing with some internal things and it's reflecting onto others and you don't even realize that that's what's happening until you actually go and talk to someone else. So I think that just therapy in itself, not only is it good for you to vent, but it's to get some understanding about yourself. It also allows you to forgive, because a lot of times we hold grudges against people, even within ourselves. And therapy is just, a lot of times you have those underlying traumas that you don't even realize that you have until you actually go and talk with someone. So I just think that for our culture, especially because there's such a stigma around going to therapy, what goes on in the household stays in the household, it is really, really good.
Absolutely. And with both of you mentioning, especially Aisha, you mentioned in terms of sometimes it's not that something is necessarily going on, or it's even a preventive measure. So when the pandemic hit, I actually called Tamika. So Tamika Reeves at Transitions Services in Southfield, Michigan, was the therapist that I actually saw before relocating to Maryland. And actually, by the way, this is Tamika's shirt. She didn't ask me to do this, but protecting my peace is something that I think is important for each of us. But whatever the case, when the pandemic hit, I felt like I needed an outlet. At the time, no one in terms of my family lived in Michigan. So there were some things I was pretty much going through, being in the house, not really, being able to go out. I already worked remotely, and now I can't go to Starbucks or Panera as my outlet. I can't go to the movies as my outlet. A lot of those things were taken away. And remember when the pandemic started, especially for those in Michigan or who are familiar with Michigan, it was more like the beginning of March, so it was cold. it was, it was cold and all of that. And it's like, man, I can't do anything. And so as a preventive measure, I went ahead and set up an appointment with Tamika and had an appointment with her. Tamika and I, we first met, I shared this last year for some people who were with us. Tamika and I, we first met, it started with communication. After our father died, I felt like it was a lot of things that I was holding on the inside. And so I ended up reaching out to Tamika as it pertains to some communication, tips and strategies. Eventually we start uncovering some other things, as it pertains to a certain extent. Now I know I'm making this up, the therapists are here, but it was almost like I'm going to say, we hear about survivor's remorse. I felt like it was success remorse. So I felt bad sometimes for the things that were happening in my life. So not necessarily bad, but I didn't want to share it. Never want to, really share it because I don't want people to think I'm bragging. Or I don't want. So it was a lot of things that we uncovered in that conversation. And so what in terms of the self-care piece, Aisha, you mentioned in terms of, like you said, people think self-care is just mani-pedi and massages, but it's so much bigger than that. It's even caring for your time. Listen, you're not going to, I hate to sound harsh, but essentially, look, you're not going to keep wasting my time. So what I can do is, like, I am not a therapist and I cannot do that. I can't give you what you need, but I can give you a suggestion for you to actually go to therapy, or I can give you some suggestions. But it got to the point where I started taking on a lot of people's issues and concerns. And that started being unhealthy for me because I'm an empath. And so I'm empathetic. I carry people's problems a lot of times. And so now I'm carrying someone else's weight. I have whatever I have going on. Now I'm carrying somebody else's weight, on me. And so, but it got to the point where I had to start protecting my time, protecting my peace, but also protecting my mind as well. So in terms of either of you sharing about, some information on self-care, again, the non-traditional self-care or what people put out there as self-care, the mani, the pedi, the massage, what other tips do you have as it pertains to that?
One of the things that I would like to say is, because you said, Joy, you take on everybody else, because obviously you do a lot. And what happens as far as everybody go, even as therapists, but I've trained myself to leave work at work. However, a good thing that's really need to be said is boundaries. And this book right here, this is the book, and I'm only promoting this because this is a Black lady. Her name is Nidra Tawwab. Set Boundaries, Find Peace. Awesome book. It costs you under $20. You can get that at Amazon, Target, wherever. However, boundaries is going to be your key. And even if you don't go to therapy, even though I suggest everybody go to therapy, it doesn't necessarily have to be because you have a mental illness, but just as part of self-care. Boundaries, we need to have boundaries not only with everyone else, but we need to have boundaries within ourselves. And I'm gonna give you just a prime example. You can go to a restaurant and you can say, oh, my food isn't good and I'm not gonna worry about it, I'm just gonna eat it. No, a healthy boundary for yourself will say, hey, waiter, or waitress, my food isn't good, can you get me some more? That's setting a healthy boundary for yourself, just something as simple as that. And boundaries are so important because it sets you up for your day. Like, say, for instance, if I said, okay, I'm gonna take on, like Joyce said, I'm taking on everybody's responsibilities, but in the same time, you're getting weighed down by everybody else's issues and problems, but you're not putting yourself first. And if you have healthy boundaries within yourself, then you can say, okay, I understand that you're going through this, but I can't do that right now, but I will pray for you or give you some support or give you someone else that will be able to assist you a little bit further. It's just establishing those healthy boundaries within yourself. And that will take a lot of the stress and the anxiety and the depression that we go through every day off of us when we just have those healthy boundaries.
Mm-hmm. And just to piggyback off of that, I think sometimes when we hear the word boundaries, we think of physical boundaries, like okay, I'm just not going to be in the same space as this person, or I'm going to create some distance. The boundaries are also mental. What are we actually going to give our energy to? That's a boundary. What am I actually going to entertain in terms of a conversation? That's a boundary. So we also have to have mental boundaries in place. And what we decide to give our energy to and what we decide not to give our energy to is very important, because that also adds to just the things that we carry, the weight that we carry, the anxiety that we feel. And then to go back to self-care in terms of, what we may think. Somebody said it in the chat, like maintenance, right? And my therapist actually told me that, like, okay, Aisha, is this self-care or is it hygiene? Like, is that what we're doing? Just maintaining that. And so we kind of created my self-care routine based off of a few different pillars. So how can I take care of myself spiritually? How can I take care of myself physically? How can I take care of myself in terms of what do I need for support when it comes to family or friends? What do I need socially? So what hobbies have I set aside that I should tap back into? Do I want to tap into taking walks? Do I want to tap into coloring? Do I want to tap into what does my meditation routine look like? Do I want to do stretching and yoga in the morning while listening to some calming music? Or do I want to have a decompressing routine at night with a bubble bath and a coloring book? So just kind of thinking about what our interests are and what's actually going to pour back into us, because a lot of time as when we are constantly pouring and pouring and pouring out, and then when we feel empty, we're confused, but it's because we haven't really done the work of figuring out what is our space for joy. How do we fill ourselves up? And that's really what taking care of yourself is.
Absolutely. Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
gonna just piggyback off of that, what you just said about the self-care piece. A lot of times when everybody does this at the top of the year, they always say, okay, new year, new me, new resolutions. And then after a couple of days, those new year resolutions fall off, or maybe a week, you may start exercising, you may implement these self-care routines. And a lot of times we have these high expectations, but a lot of times what I like to do with people is I say, okay, new year. I don't like to say new year, new me, because you're the same you. I like to say new year improves you or improve me. And what I do is I said, okay, on one side of the list, tell me the things that make you happy. And that's the hard thing for a lot of people to do because they really don't know. And so, or it could be materialistic things. It could be your family, it could be your kids. And those are just some of the things they come up with. The list is very short. And then I say, okay, on the other side, tell me a list, make me a list of things that you do every single day. And after I say, are you done? They get done. And I say, okay, compare the two lists. Now, are you doing anything from your happy list, which you do every single day? 9 times out of 10, it's a no, or it's one thing, and that includes the kids or the family. So I think when you're going into the new year or trying to figure out a self-care routine, you really have to think about what that really looks like and what it is that makes you happy, not how you serving others. Yes, that makes us happy, but at the same time, how are you serving yourself? I think that's a huge deal.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, both of you. And one of the things that I would say is something that I started a lot of times, especially if you work a traditional Monday through Friday job. A lot of times we work Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday are for errands. So we don't really have that true time to reset. So what I've done is I do everything by Thursday. So Thursday is it for me as it pertains to washing, any type of laundry, as it pertains to errands, anything, so that the weekend is a true reset. And it's really, my time. So I don't have to do actual work, and I'm not doing chores or what I feel, chores or errands. So that's something that I actually have done in terms of creating work-life balance. Another thing that I do, my laptop does not go in my bedroom. So I work 100% remote. My laptop does not enter my bedroom. My bedroom is my sanctuary. And so work stays in the work zones. And so that's another boundary that I have set, you know, as well. So those are just a couple of things that I've set in terms of like the work-life balance. And I see Lena has a question: what are some suggestions as it pertains to creating balance? So, you know, and piggybacking off of that, what suggestions do either of you have as it pertains to the balance piece?
So something that you already mentioned, right, is kind of figuring out not necessarily what kind of learner you are, but what your needs are. And sometimes we struggle with that because we aren't really honest with ourselves. And so doing that self-reflection piece and really asking yourself and being honest and not ashamed about what it is that you need is going to assist you in figuring out that balance. So for me, I know something that, as I mentioned before, something that I struggled with when I first got into the field was feeling guilty for having anxiety or struggling with anxiety, because it's like, huh, girl, like, you're supposed to know how to manage this. How are you, like, you know, assisting others and you're struggling with it? But I had to also recognize that, one, Aisha, without any titles, without any letters behind your name, you are a human being first.
You're human.
And so this is something that you struggle with, and that's okay. And so I had to be honest with myself. I had to recognize what my needs are. Sometimes I am just a go, 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 go person. I'm super ambitious. If I say I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. And running is leaving me on empty. It's heightening my anxiety. So where is this balance between work and pouring into others, and then my personal life, what I enjoy doing, what I want to do? And so I had to be heavy on routines. And so creating that balance for you may be creating a routine for yourself, okay? Whether that means in the morning, I am putting together my to-do list. And a to-do list could be like writing down your top 3 goals that you have for the day, and just focusing on those things. Whatever comes up outside of that 3, it's none of my business, because I'm focusing on these 3 today specifically. Now, if I get through those 3 things and I want to add a 4th thing, then I have the ability to do that. But I'm going to check in with myself and say, hey, are we okay with just doing these 3 things today? We finished them, or do I have the energy and capacity to do this 4th thing? And then also, after, you know, creating your to-do list, you can go into whatever is next in your routine. It could be meditating. Okay, so for the next 20 minutes, I am going to be listening to this Calm app, and I'm going to do a guided meditation. My phone is on Do Not Disturb, because this is my time to center myself before I start my day. And then you just move on to whatever is next. But the beginning of finding your balance is really doing that self-reflection and being honest with yourself about what it is that you need.
And just having that, and just even with that, just it's called a boundary. Having that boundary within yourself, that makes a huge difference. And I have to say, you know, piggybacking off of Aisha, if you prioritize yourself first, and like I said, you fall off, we all fall off. We be determined to do something and we fall off. We're human. It's only natural. But if you continue to do it, after 21 days, it becomes a habit, pretty much. So I think that's huge in itself, just prioritizing you. You have to just, at some point, we just have to stop and say, okay, what is it that I want? What is it that I need in this moment? Because you can't pour from a half empty cup.
That's true. And, you know, so what I want the participants to do, if you have been on an airplane, if you've been on an airplane within the last 3 years, just type, you can either give a thumbs up or you can type me, whatever you want to type. Just type that somewhere in the chat, or like give a thumbs up, whatever you feel like you need to do. So, because here's the thing, I see one of my sorors, Angela Sykes, is on here, and we actually met on a plane. We met sitting on a plane going from BWI to Detroit. And so we actually were sitting next to each other on a plane. Well, one of the things that they say on the plane is what? When the flight attendants get up and they give their safety talk, they say what? Make sure if in the event that there's an issue with oxygen, the oxygen masks are going to come down, and you need to make sure that you secure your own before helping others. So you have to make sure you have, your own oxygen mask, your own lifeline first before helping others. Why? Because if something happened and you helping the other person, and if you end up not being able to get oxygen, you're gonna pass out, yourself. So you need to be able to, help other people, right? Well, in order for you to be able to help other people, you got to make sure that you're right. You got to make sure that you're right. And so therefore, it's just, I'm sorry, I'm hearing some background.
Somebody need to mute.
Okay, I can't see where to mute. Okay, so you got to make sure that that you are taking care of yourself. I always say self-care is not selfish, it is essential. Self-care is not selfish, it is essential. It's vital that we take care of ourselves. Like, I want to say, Margaret, you just made the comment in terms of, pouring on eat. Just, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's just like when you're driving in a car. You can't drive anywhere if your car on E. It's gonna stay right there. You can't, if you let your oil, and when I was young and foolish, I did this before. You let your oil get on, where you don't have anything left, and you need an oil change, and you're trying to roll around. Guess what's gonna happen? You're gonna mess up the engine. You will mess up the engine if you don't get the proper oil change, or if you let your oil go low and you have not had it filled. You aren't getting your oil change, or the oil filled back up. So just wanted to share that. So in continuing this, so I just want to continue this a little bit. When we talk about boundaries, how can you respectfully share boundaries or have boundaries with friends and or family? How can you respectfully, what are some ways that you can actually have that conversation as it pertains to boundaries, or let people know, I know I may have been the one, and I'm just going to throw this out here. This is no offense to anybody. I'm just saying this for the sake of this conversation. So this is an example. Please don't sue me. But I know I've been the one that's always been driving everyone around town. I've been like the bus, but you know what? I can't do that anymore. I don't have the capacity to do that anymore. What are some ways that, or some things that you can, give us in terms of that may help us establish boundaries with friendships and, family?
Did that feel uncomfortable for you, Joy?
Saying that? Oh, no. No, not anymore. So let me say this. At one point, I did, but I think I share this. Like, I have a PhD in boundaries now, so I'm good with, you can ask me whatever you want to ask me, but that don't mean that because you can ask me whatever you want to ask me, but that doesn't mean that I am going to answer your question, because my business is my business. The pronoun there is my. That means that the ownership is mine. So you can do, so it's certain things you can ask. Everyone has the right to ask. Everyone has the right to, but I've gotten much better in terms of saying, I don't have the capacity, or in terms of saying no, or even in terms of not responding. Like, I just don't feel like responding today. I'll respond when I feel like it, especially if it is a day where it is a self-care day. And it is a day where I need to shut down. Anyone who knows me, Shanita, I see Shanita here. I see Tanzania. I see Tanisha. Those are three people who know. And Nikki, I'm putting Nikki in here too. Those are four people who know. How is my phone usually 95% of the time? 95% of the time, my phone is on do not disturb.
Do not disturb.
It is. So anyway, so no, it didn't feel uncomfortable for me, but in terms of, I know that that's uncomfortable for a lot of people.
I think a lot of the times when we set boundaries, because when you set a boundary, it's uncomfortable for the person who's setting a boundary as well, because it's new to them as well. So boundaries is not, it's change for the person that's setting it and the person that's receiving it. And with boundaries, what you have to know is that, okay, they may not get it the first time or the second time, but the person that's given the boundary, they have to be willing to know that, okay, I have to continue to enforce this because this is what I need. So even if you just say, no is a sentence, obviously, and you can just say no. However, even if you gave them the explanation as you did, just know that they may try to cross that line again because that's what they're used to. And for a lot of people, when we don't have boundaries set in place, they'll just go about the normal to what they're used to. And so when we get so tired and burned out, we set that boundary. It's going to take time. That's just like teaching a child how to ride a bike. They won't get it the first time. They may not get it the second or third time, but by the 15th time, they will get it. They'll understand it. So I think that that's what we have to go in knowing that, okay, I may tell you no, but the person may not receive it as a no at first. So you just have to continue to stay strong in that and set your boundary if that's what you really want.
Mhm. And then I'm going to go back to just that self-reflection piece of knowing what your needs are first. And then you're able to begin to become comfortable with advocating for yourself and saying, hey, this is what I need, or hey, this is my capacity, I can't. One thing, and I use examples with myself a lot, only to show that it can be done. We're doing the work too. And one thing that I had to do with, I'll just say my siblings, is just like, hey, here's what I need y'all to ask me. Ask me if I have the capacity first before you just dump, especially if it's a day where I have 4 or 5 clients, right? So I'm already doing this work that I love to do, that I enjoy to do. That's what I'm called to do. But I'm also not your therapist. I'm your sister first. And so ask me, do I have the capacity? Because sometimes I do not. I'm tired and I'm like you, Joy. I put my phone on D&D and I go about my business because that's a boundary for me. And so they are really awesome. My sisters are amazing. So they are awesome with, hey, what's your capacity today? Because I got something to tell you. And that gives me the opportunity to be like, yeah, girl, come on. Or they'll even say, listen, I'm talking to you as my sister. I don't want a therapist answer. I don't want you to put that hat on. I want my sister. But they didn't even recognize that I was feeling that way originally because I didn't voice that need. I didn't set that boundary. And so sometimes it's really just being clear, and although it can be uncomfortable at first because you don't know how the person is going to receive it. But when you're doing things from a pure and genuine intent, it'll be able to land a bit easier, whether they agree with it or not, because how they process it is how they process it. But when we, like I said, operate from a pure and genuine intent, it can land a little bit easier. And then the more that you practice doing that, communicating your needs, recognizing what those things are, then it gets a bit easier as you continue to set those boundaries as needed.
Yeah, because the energy that you give off, like you can just say no, I'm not going to do it. But however, you're going to be met with more resistance to that boundary. Just like she said, if the energy is more pure, then it should be smooth sailing. Obviously, it's going to take a minute, but however, that's just like when I was working for the state of Michigan, and everybody would call me, "Oh, I got a question. It's after 5 o'clock." I set a boundary right up front. If you call me after 5, I'm not going to answer you. If you call me and ask me a question, I'm not going to answer it. Business hours. Because if not, then you'll find yourself like being tired, dealing with everybody else's problem, worried about it through the night, through the next day. You getting up the next day and got to go into it. Oh, they asked me a question. I got to figure it out the top of the morning. No, we're going to set a boundary right here, right now.
So in other words, you saying that you go big red on people from 5 Heartbeats? Is that what you're saying? My office hours are 9 to 5.
9 to 5 office hours.
But I know on Friday, I actually received a couple of different inquiries on Friday, and same thing. It was like, I can respond on Monday, or anything not done after anything not done before end of day Friday, then we're going to get to it on Monday. And so that's something that, same thing that I've started, started doing as well as it pertains to work. Now, there are certain instances where there's like an extenuating circumstance, so I have to do something. But yeah, if it's not urgent, no, not at all, not at all. So in terms of boundaries, so we're still gonna stick with boundaries, but actually I want to go in a little bit of a different direction. So we know that as a whole, there's already an issue with going to therapy in the African-American community as a whole. It is, I believe it's getting better because more people are talking about it. So I think that it is getting better, but it's still a disparity. I'm gonna say it that way. It's still an issue. What we also know though, is that men are a lot more apprehensive as well, to go a lot more apprehensive in general in terms of going to therapy. What are some suggestions or, anything that you may have that you want to share with us in terms of whoever the man is in your life, whether it's a brother, whether it's, a cousin, your dad, uncle, nephew, friend, boyfriend, fiance, husband, whatever, whoever, what suggestions, if any, do you have as it pertains to that, having that conversation with the man, especially when we know, and again, this is no offense to anyone, but we know how men are with their ego, their ego and pride sometimes with men. And then to hear, because again, some people may hear it as something wrong with you, so what are some suggestions that you have as it pertains to that?
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, I would suggest creating a safe space, right, for you guys to feel comfortable with being vulnerable. And vulnerability, as we all know, or most of us know, is something that I know has often come up in conversation with my male friends or men that I have come in contact with, of not feeling comfortable with being vulnerable out of fear of judgment or fearing that you're going to think that I'm less of a man because I'm expressing to you that I actually have some sort of emotion about something. Because unfortunately, Black men, especially, well, our men especially, have this idea that showing emotion, having emotion, feeling something equates to weakness. Not all of them, but there's a good majority of our community that does feel like that. And so one thing that I've implemented and I've suggested to others is to start with just like call it a mental health check-in. Like, hey, I'm just checking to see, how are you doing? I want you to recognize and validate and acknowledge their experience. And a way of validating and acknowledging that is acknowledging their humanity. Because a lot of men feel like outside of providing, outside of working, they really don't know who they are. And this is just based off of conversations, like I said, that I've had personally and within my field. So really acknowledging and validating their humanity first, recognizing that you a whole human being that comes with feelings and emotions just like I do. And I just really want to check in with you. How are you doing? And then if it's someone that you are, in a relationship with, just validating and also acknowledging like, hey, I care about how you feel. And I really want to listen to understand, not to respond, not to try to fix anything, but for you to just talk about how you may be feeling about whatever. There are question games if you want to make it fun. You can utilize that just to create this space. And then you can kind of implement, well, hey, I've noticed some things about, me, and I've been wanting to talk to somebody. How would you feel about that? Not saying it in a way of, you need to go talk to somebody because I don't like it when you do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, you need to fix that. They're not gonna hear that. Gentleness goes a long way. So just creating that space for vulnerability, that space of safety, acknowledging and validating, and gentleness.
And I think on the just to piggyback off of Aisha, on the flip side of that, what we need to do, just as human beings, is to begin to hold each other accountable. And when I say accountable, as far as our mental health go, we can hold each other. Oh, you owe me that $5. You ain't gave it to me yet. Okay. Just like you can hold them to that $5 that they haven't gave you. Hold it to you. Hey, you don't seem like yourself. What's going on? Let's talk. Just even if you have that type of conversation, that dialogue with that person, just holding each other accountable, noticing, not being afraid to say something is off. Are you dealing with something? You seem a little down and depressed, or you seem like you're a little bit more anxious than usual. We notice it. All of us can see the signs of anxiety and depression, but for a lot of us, we don't mention it because I just feel like we don't mention it because it's uncomfortable for us. You don't want it to make it uncomfortable for the relationship, but I think you're doing the relationship an injustice when you don't say anything, because that's why we have so many suicides here happening now, and especially within the Black community. There's a lot of people that's going down that route because, a lot of the times as a village, we should be holding each other accountable and not just seeking the $5, but also seeking, making sure that we're in a space that we should be in. So I think that that's huge in itself as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so we're coming down on time. So I do just want to share again, if you do have questions, please feel free to type it in the chat. And if you want to send me a direct message, if you want it to be more a private or anonymous, feel free to send a direct message to me, and then I can ask the question without saying a name or anything. The last thing that I want to talk about, so one of my good friends and I were having a conversation maybe a good month or so ago, and we were talking about sometimes being the one that's always reaching out, being the one that's, calling, texting, whatever the case may be. And so in terms of when we think about healthy relationships, we all know that it's not one-sided, and so sometimes if you sit back and if you don't reach out, you'll see how many people will actually reach out. You'll see how long it takes for somebody to reach out to you, because you've gotten you've become the person that's always reaching out, that's always, cash apping, that's always remembering birthdays, that's always supporting. So even as it pertains to this, you're the one that's always supporting and buying or attending, and then no one is really, there attending or supporting you or showing up for you. So what do you have, anything that you want to share as it pertains to having those types of, let me not even say having those types of conversations, anything that you want to share as it pertains to one-sided relationships, friendships, whatever it may be?
I think that just goes back to what a lot of our topic has been about tonight, and that's boundaries, having those healthy boundaries and just holding each other accountable. Because me and my friend, we had the same situation. I was doing more of the reaching, and I felt like I was becoming drained in the relationship. But it was just a matter of us having that conversation, because, a lot of times people get so involved in their own lives and they don't really see, they know that you're there and it is what it is and they keep going. But if you're feeling drained by the relationship, like I said, the best thing that you can do is to place that boundary and just have a conversation. A lot of times just about having a conversation. When we think about it, in our mind, we're thinking that, oh, this person and this or that, but this person really don't really know what's going on because we haven't expressed it. We haven't even had that conversation. So that's where I would start, just having the conversation. And it doesn't even negate a boundary necessarily. It's just a conversation.
Definitely having a conversation. And then also, I'm heavy on reflection. So kind of once you communicate and you kind of see where this person is, sometimes life just happens, right? And so sometimes people it may not even be intentional that they're not responding or that they're not coming around like they usually do, because life be lifing, and sometimes things just happen and it's not intentional. So definitely that communication. But then I also feel like we have intuition and discernment. And so we can kind of sense or tell, like, you know what? we don't really have things in common anymore. We might have grown apart. Where I'm headed and where they're headed, we're on two different paths, and that's okay. That's okay. It's okay to just realize that some friendships are seasonal. That it was good while we had some good times, but right now this person they don't even fit in my life, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. It's not a fit anymore. We're not in alignment. And so you can kind of, and I know sometimes when things do shift, friendships do shift, it doesn't mean that it doesn't come with any hurt feelings, or that it's kind of like, dang, well, I wonder what's going on. Or that it's always comfortable, but not internalizing it as I'm the problem. It could just be they have a lot going on, or we're just not in alignment anymore, and that's okay.
And with that, I do just want to share the importance of, so that's the thing, sometimes we don't know what people are going through, right? And so I think even a lot of times, even with the strong friend, people think the strong person is supposed to be strong 24/7. And so again, if there's no contact with the person, hey, how are you? You're always there showing up for everyone else. So how are you doing? But not knowing if things sort of shift, really tapping into, is the person okay? Because maybe they're falling into a depression. Maybe they're at home and it's some pills in their face and they're thinking about, maybe I should, just take these. Maybe it is a situation from a spiritual standpoint where there's some type of demonic influence, right? Or somebody is like, they're just like, why am I here? Or they're feeling hopeless, or they're feeling like no one cares, or the weight of the world is, falling on them, so it goes back to, I think, Aisha, you mentioned in terms of that discernment, being able to discern, but also discern when to reach out to the person, when to pray, when to fall back, like really all of that, being able to discern, what's what, because it could be something, detrimental. I think about Miss USA, what happened, beautiful woman. I mean, an attorney, a lot going on. And that's the thing, status, looks, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenic, all of that. It does not matter what you look like. It don't matter your race, your age. It doesn't matter how much money you got in a bank account, how many rental properties you have. It does not matter whether you married, single, children, no children. It can impact anyone. And so, being able to discern, when it is a situation, let me reach out to this person. Something has changed. This is totally not like them, versus if it is a matter of reasons, seasons, lifetime. And like Abraham and Lot, we need to go our separate ways. So knowing that as well. So the very, very last question that I have is from a therapy standpoint. So I want to end with something a little more lighthearted. From a therapy standpoint, what is your take on being petty? responding in a petty manner, sending that petty text, doing something petty from a therapy standpoint. And again, all of us are human, so you may be thinking, well, I just did something petty yesterday. I did something petty before we got on here. That's not talking about that. From a therapy standpoint, there is, I feel like, a petty culture. The cancel culture, but also like petty, people like being petty. So anyway, what do you all want to share? This is the last question. What do you want to share?
That question is so funny to me. It comes down to, like I said, I think I mentioned energy earlier. It takes energy to be angry, hold a grudge, you know what I'm saying? Responds in from Pettyville. It takes a lot of energy. So it's just like, okay, do I have this? Because, we like to say, oh, I got time today. I'm going to go ahead and do what they ask for. But do you really want to be on that type of time, right? Is it really worth your energy? Or is it worth just being like, you know what? Okay, it's kind of like, what also comes to mind is when Plies, if you guys know who Plies the artist is, and he's just like, you mad, I ain't got no time to argue with you. Like, if you if you have the time, you have to ask yourself, do I want to put this energy back? Like, yes, we are all human. Sometimes you're gonna respond out of emotion. That's just the reality of it. But when you start to ask yourself, like, do I really want to put this energy into this? Or do I just want to be at peace in my little bubble, and they can have it? And so just kind of, that's how I approach pettiness, is, do I have the energy for it? And is that how I want to spend my energy?
Absolutely. Thank you, Margaret. You want to share?
Yeah, it's just for me, because and my god sister is on here, Nikki, and she can tell you I can be petty. I can be real petty, and I'm sure she has a lot of stories. But nonetheless, I just try not to be anymore, and it's because it takes too much energy. It takes too much of my energy. It takes too much of my time. It's just the back and forth. That's where, you come into play and set that boundary. Okay, and I'm a nice nasty you for the last time, but that's gonna be it. And I'm gonna set that boundary, and you're gonna know it. And it's not necessarily just me being petty. You're gonna feel the boundary that I'm setting with you, and that's gonna be the end of the story. It takes too much time for me to go back and forth and think about how petty that I can be. No, I'm a nice nasty you, and I'm sorry I'm a therapist, but that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna set that boundary, and you're gonna know it. So, it's just a matter of being in a different space. I'm in a different space now. And I just, like Aisha said, it's all about energy for me, because it just takes way too much time to be on that type of level.
Absolutely. And so, Aisha, I see it's a little over for you. So if you do need to leave, I'm going to close out in like 2 minutes. But just in case, I do just want to say thank you to Aisha. She does have an 8 o'clock commitment, and she still wanted to be with us today. So thank you so much, Aisha. Absolutely appreciate you. So again, if you do have to jump off, I completely, get it. Just want to share that. But, I think that it is just important to just have that conversation. There are times where, I feel like Peter, I feel like Peter is my brother, and we have the same blood. And so sometimes, the beacher in me sometimes want to come out, and, there are times where I want to, and if you don't know, in terms of Peter was one in the Bible that cut off the ear, got mad, cut the ear off. Now, I'm not trying to cut anybody, but I'm saying in terms of, getting to the point where you're super, annoyed or angry, or, you get riled up. But like was stated by Aisha and Margaret, definitely not trying to go in that direction in any way, shape, or form. I see Thelma, also known as Jazzy, mentioned that peace wins, every time, because at the end, no one wins, right? So if I end up coming out like Peter, or, kicking over chairs and kicking over tables, even though Jesus did kick over tables and chairs, before, but I digress. But if I end up doing that, I'm going to end up having to deal with the consequences of that, whatever it may be. So if we end up getting into an angry place, and we stay there, it could potentially lead to more destruction. It could potentially lead to even more destruction down the line. People are angry. That's where you get people killing each other. You get people, an ex still wanting to stalk, stalking, someone stalking his ex, or trying to go over there, or don't want the person to move on, and all of that. So just wanted to share that. At the end of the day, what I did just want to share with each and every one of you, just want to, really hone in on the fact therapy is extremely important. Don't think that you are by yourself. If you need to talk with someone, if you need therapy, I personally feel like therapy is essential, is vital, is necessary. And I feel like everyone should actually, consider therapy at some point. I think sometimes people don't want to do the work, because it is, let's be honest, Margaret, you can say that it takes work
Work. And anything
to be able to, peel back the layers of the onion, right? And so some people don't want to put in the work. Some people are scared. What is the therapist going to say about me? Or am I going to, is something going to be revealed about me that I'm not ready to handle? But it's better that guess what? At the end of the day, if you don't deal with it now, it's going to deal with you later. So if there are some things from the past, from the childhood, some anger issues, some trust issues, maybe that's, some of the situation that's happened in terms of, with single individuals, is it that, you're getting a date, but you're not getting a second date, is it something else, going on? Is it a situation where they can pick up on your lack of trust, or they pick up on your insecurity, or they pick up on a low self-esteem? So just considering working on yourself and knowing that it's okay. It is going to take work, but in the words of Aunt Tabitha, it's going to be worth it. It is absolutely going to be worth it.
And I just want to leave everybody with this. Be intentional with your mental health and your self-care, just like you intentional with figuring out what you're going to wear for the day. Look at it that way.
Absolutely. And then the last thing I want to share is, if you can just quickly just drop the thumbs up, heart, whatever you want to drop as it pertains to, how many of you saw the read that Aunt Tabitha gave Wendy Williams? You saw it or you heard it?
I heard it.
And so let me tell you, Aunt Tab, she blessed her in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And so, but it was so respectful. It was in love. And, and so that's the thing, that I wanted to leave with as well, is that, even the Bible says a soft answer turns away wrath. And so even though, there are times where we want to, go off on people, just remember that soft answer turns away wrath. When talking with that loved one, whether male or female, soft answer, talking with them in love, showing support and love, reaching out to your loved ones, checking on everyone, checking on the strong one in the family. How are you doing today? How are you doing since this pandemic? What's going on in your life? Having those conversations as well. So again, Margaret, I thank you. I thank Aisha as well. I thank all of you for joining. I see my sister from California, Sabrina's here. My mom is on here. I see Jazzy. I see Lena. I see some of everybody on here. Deanna, one of my coworkers and peers. And I'm just so grateful for all of you. Margaret, I see a lot of your family and friends on here. I see Nikki on here. And so we just want to thank you all for tuning in to this very, very critical conversation. And lastly, Margaret, can you share the book and the author again?
Yes.
And then while you're looking it up, Margaret, I do want to share, I see Kiera just put in some hearts. There is another book called Boundaries that I actually sent to Kiera. There's a book, I can't remember who is by offhand, but it's a book that I read a while ago. It is by Dr. Henry Cloud. That was a book that that I actually sent to Kiera, I think like 2 weeks ago. Boundaries, When to Say Yes, How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life, by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. That's a book that I read some years ago. And I also sent that to my niece as well. And Lena, I see Lena read it as well. So thank you all. Have a wonderful night, everyone. And we do have another event that's going to be on Monday, March 21st. It's going to be on finances. Because again, when you're a confident woman, you want to make sure that you have your finances together. And I'm happy to have Kimberly Stewart out of Florida, as well as Shanita Colbert, who is on with us today. Both of them are going to be with me. We're going to talk about budgets, investing, and savings as well. So thank you all so much. Again, have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.